Hello again. It's time for part 2 of my July wrap-up. These are the YA books that I've read, plus one new adult book that I read. These are the books that I read for July in the YA and new adult category. And the first book I'm going to talk about is the new adult book. And is it an adult book? It is the second book in the Court of Thorn and Roses series, I guess. It is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. If you saw my review of the first book, I kind of hinted about this book because I literally just finished it right when I was doing the wrap-up. And I will honestly tell you that if this was the first book that I read and not the other book, I probably would have stopped reading the series. I understand why people might like it, honestly. The characters are interesting, but really, I think I've heard somebody mention this a couple of times, this is really just fae porn. This is sexually graphic, definitely enough to not be considered YA at all. And while I have nothing against that, it just took up way too much of this book. It was a huge part of this book, and I felt like the story really suffered because of it, because there was just so much of that in this book. I still may continue to read the series because I did really like the first book, and I don't know how sexually graphic the third and crossover book is, if it is as much as this book is. But for me, I really did not enjoy this book because of all of the graphic sexuality. Hoping that maybe the third book would be better. Yeah, I was really disappointed in this book, and this is my least popular book in this collection of books that I've read. While there was sexuality in the first book, it was nowhere near as much as it was in this book. This book had a lot more, and I felt like it just kind of was a little bit departure from what I saw in the first book. That is A Court of Mist and Fury. Next book I'm going to talk about here is The Fates Divided, which is the second book from the Carve the Mark series. I don't know why I enjoyed Carve the Mark when I first read it, because when I reread it, it just wasn't for me. When I picked up this book, for some reason I had fond memories of the first book. When I reread the first book, I really wasn't impressed. I thought, oh, maybe the second book will make me enjoy it again, and it didn't. I'm not going to really even explain again about this story, because the books that I really don't like, I think I try to block out of my memory as quickly as possible. But I just found this dull, to be honest with you. This was just a pretty dull book. The characters were pretty one-dimensional to me. There really wasn't any stakes. I didn't care about the characters, and I just was not interested in this book at all. So I will not be continuing this series by Veronica Roth. So this is The Fates Divided, the second book in the Carve the Mark series. So now that we got rid of the books I didn't like this month, let's get into the books I did. First one I'm going to talk about here is Legendary by Stephanie Garber. This is the sequel to Caraval, which I loved. I am a huge fan of Caraval. I thought it was a great book. I loved the mystery, the intrigue, and this pretty much picks up right where the first Caraval book ends. The story basically is about this game that people play that has magic in it, and there is this character who runs the show called Legend, and there are these two sisters who got involved in this game, and you don't know if it's a game or if it's not a game. And I love the magic systems in the book. I love the way the world is structured, and again, I really loved the first book, Caraval. Legendary was still good. I did enjoy this book, not as much as Caraval. I think Caraval, because the world was new, you kind of didn't know what to expect in the first book. In the second book, you kind of know where it's going, because if you've read the first book, you kind of got an idea of what it's going to do. They try to kind of misdirect you, but it's like, okay, I've seen this before. I know where the misdirection is going. It didn't really have as many twists and turns to me as the first book. It also didn't have the teamwork that the first book had, but I still did enjoy it. I would probably give it, if I gave the first book a 5-star, this would be a 4. I mean, it is still a good book, but just not as good as Caraval. So don't expect Caraval, but expect something that is still pretty good, and that is Legendary. The next 3 books I might as well review together because they are part of the whole Infernal Devices series. So I have read all 3 books in Cassandra Clair's Infernal Devices series. Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince, and Clockwork Princess. I really enjoyed the series. I know some people didn't like Will as much, and I didn't have a problem with Will. I mean, I understand he was kind of a cockier version of Jace, and he didn't really have some of the dark brooding and caring that Jace did at some points in the book. So I could understand why people didn't like Will as much, but I had no problem with Will. And I really did like the series. Takes place in the Victorian London times. It's about this woman, Tess, who's going to meet her brother and then gets taken by the Dark Sisters. And the villain in this series I did really enjoy. And just in general, I'm not going to really spoil it too much, but it really introduces to a whole cast of characters, whole brand new cast of characters. Did link us to the original Mortal Instruments series. And it was good. Honestly, I really did enjoy it, and I am looking forward to now reading the current Cassandra Clair series of books after I've read this now, and hopefully when the new one comes out I can actually be caught up. That is Cassandra Clair's Infernal Devices series, and I look forward to reading the next Cassandra Clair series. And the last book I'm going to cover here, I originally thought was a middle grade book, which is called Thornhill. It is a book that has, I would say, half artwork and half story. If you could see a lot of story and artwork at the same time. And I really like this book. I mean, this is a 5-star book. This is one of the few books that, to be honest with you, I almost got a little teary-eyed for it. It is a powerful book. It is definitely creepy. It kind of starts off with these pictures, and you find out from these pictures, the pictures are telling a story, and then in between these pictures, you read about these little diary entries that this one character is writing. What you find out is they're actually 2 separate storylines, and the pictures are like current day, and the diary entries are in the past, and they wind up combining. But the story is basically about a girl who is picked on. Viciously picked on, and she's going to be leaving Thornhill because Thornhill is going to be closing down. This is basically kind of a orphanage for these children, and you feel really bad for this girl. You really do. There is this one child that is tormenting her, and she talks about it in her diary. And again, you see these pictures about this other girl who's kind of visiting this site, so you quickly realize that, okay, this is sometime in the future, but somehow it's connected and you don't know how. And like I said, this was a pretty creepy book, but it saddened me for a while because really all it is about is a girl who just wants a friend, who tries to reach out and gets slapped down, and it's just a sad story of loneliness and then acceptance, but then it is definitely gothic in nature. And like I said, the imagery is creepy. The story is definitely creepy. I couldn't rate this highly enough. I really enjoyed this. If you're thinking about picking up Thornhill, I would highly suggest it. It's a very easy read because it is half artwork and then half diary entries. I just really enjoyed the series. It was definitely a page turner. I think I might have finished this in like one day. It was just so compelling to read, and I am so glad I picked it up. That is Thornhill. And those are all the YA and new adult books that I've read for July. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.